Tonight on Nova, head trauma in the ER.
I think we probably keep it out of our mind that an accident could happen. You know, it's not going to happen to me. And you know what? It is going to happen to you. It's going to happen to your kids. Alex, open your eyes.
This doctor practices a simple life-saving technique. Would your own doctor do the same?
The fact that it is not performed more routinely is appalling.
Coma. Major funding for Nova is provided by the Park Foundation, dedicated to education and quality television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
Police scour Central Park for evidence after a vicious attack on a woman found beaten and unconscious.
It happened in broad daylight. She was found unconscious on the path at 4:08 in the afternoon.
She was discovered bleeding from the head and rushed to New York Hospital.
Dr. Jam Ghajar is my guest. Now, the woman who was beaten in Central Park, she was in a coma when she arrived.
She was beaten severely about the head. I mean, when she came into the emergency room and I saw her, her head was swollen, the size of a pumpkin.
Jam Ghajar is a surgeon who treats severe head injury. In June 1996, he was called into a highly publicized case. A woman beaten in New York Central Park.
Galia.
Using controversial methods, Ghajar tried to save his patient's life.
Her face battered almost beyond recognition. The woman savagely beaten in Central Park remains unconscious.
She required emergency surgery overnight at New York Hospital.
The crime scene near 82nd Street on the west side of the park is still cordoned off.
Twice the patient came close to dying. Both times, she survived. To New Yorkers, it seemed like a miracle. But Ghajar called it science.
The public tends to personalize medical therapies and say a miracle's happening somewhere. And it would be nice. I think miracles are great. We can use them whenever we get them. But this is an application of good scientific methods.
Ghajar is one of the leaders of a campaign to ensure that coming out of a coma doesn't depend on miracles. The goal is to improve every patient's chance for survival.
Trauma team, emergency room. Find out what the trauma is. Head trauma. Head trauma.
Struck by a car while crossing the street, a child lies in a coma.
Hit in the head, he's posturing now. He was head first under the car, prone.
Paramedics report that the child was rigidly extending his arms, called posturing, a sign of severe head trauma.
Why was he intubated? Posturing. He's posturing every right side gaze.
IV tray, Christine.
Check his extremities.
He's got distal pulses.
We got on the scene. He was already in the back of the EMT's truck. They told me that he was underneath the car. They don't know if it was the car that hit him. They don't know if he was thrown underneath that car, but he was hit by a car.
So we don't have a witness. We don't know exactly what happened.
Right. They're all back at the scene.
And when you found this child, he was unconscious.
He was unconscious, posturing in the back of their truck, right, with a right-sided gaze.
We have a 4x4.
Head trauma is a leading cause of death and injury.
And we page neurosurgery as well.
The ER alerts Dr. Ghajar, who's been trying to bring this problem to the public's attention.
Hi, I'm calling from Trauma Room 1. Can we page neurosurgery, please?
There's a trauma team in the trauma center, and they see the patient immediately when they come in, and they follow the ABCs, airway, breathing, and circulation. They make sure the patient's got an airway, they're breathing, and they've got blood circulation, because before you do anything, you have to be assured of that.
There's a lot of blood in his mouth. So we had to suction him. Couldn't intubate him before.
He was a 9-year-old child who was hit by a car, and he was found unconscious under the car posturing.
When the patient came in, it was obvious that it was a severe head trauma case because he was not moving, he was unconscious, and the paramedics were reporting that he was agonally breathing, which means that it's a type of shallow breathing that is usually associated with impending death.
The team hooks the child up to a respirator and quickly monitors vital signs
Can we get a monitor?
before it can focus on the head injury.
Does anyone have any pressure yet?
He's popping at 120.
120?
Popping at 120. 120?
120 systolic. We're going up to head CT. I'm just going to scan the whole way down. I just think that this kid really needs a head CT in a big way.
Someone get some blankets, warm sheets. Let's keep the kid warm.
The team rushes the child to the CAT scan to take special x-rays of the brain to determine what's happening inside the head.
Ready?
Watch the IV lines. Watch the IV lines. Oh, okay, great.
Bag a couple of times.
Before the x-rays are taken, the patient starts having seizures.
Our lanterns in.
Seizures may be a sign that blood has leaked in the brain.
He's
seizing. See that?
These areas of injury will cause swelling, which could be life-threatening.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Strong. All right, bye-bye. He's gonna set, yeah. Take him off, repeat his blood pressures and get a thoracostomy tube set up for the right. Hello?
A beep from his pager, and Dr. Jam Ghajar heads across town to the hospital.
Good evening, Jamaica Hospital.
Yeah, hi, it's Dr. Ghajar.
Yes, Dr. Ghajar.
Can you reach Dr. Venue for me?
Yes, doctor. One moment.
On call, Ghajar responds to emergencies 24 hours a day.
Hello, Venue. Yeah, did you examine him?
Yeah.
Does he open his eyes?
No, he's not.
He's not opening his eyes?
No.
Okay, can you have the ventric set up and a cut down set?
The ventric is already set up.
Okay, is the mother there?
Ghajar is planning a course of treatment designed to prevent the so-called second accident of head injury.
I'm on my way.
Okay.
We used to think that all the injury occurred at the moment of impact. But now we know that actually a lot of injury occurs afterwards, in the first week in the hospital. The brain swells up, the brain doesn't get enough blood and oxygen, and then parts of the brain die. That injury in itself can be far worse than the first injury. Yeah. Where's you have the scan, the copy of the scans?
I talked to the family. I told them you were on the way in, that you talked to me.
This is his CAT scan. This white little area here is a blood clot. And he has two more here, one over here in the left hemisphere, one over here in the right hemisphere. So he's got shear injuries.
At the moment of impact, the patient's brain rocked back and forth inside the skull, tearing blood vessels and pulling nerve fibers. These injuries cause the brain to swell, blocking the flow of oxygen-carrying blood. The brain could strangulate without more room. And one way to make space is to drain clear fluid that normally accumulates.
The best way to do that is to put a tube into the brain and to place the tube somewhat in the center of the brain where the spinal fluid is made, so that if the pressure gets too high, you can just drain some of this fluid and relieve the swelling. Okay, can you hold his head from down there? We drill a hole through the skull, and then we puncture the lining of the brain called the dura, and then we put the catheter in, and usually about 5 to 7 centimeters from the scalp we hit the spinal fluid, and you'll see it come out.
Ghajar invented a device to assist in this procedure, and other techniques are readily available.
You get a suture set?
But many hospitals consider this first step costly and unnecessary.
Can I bring Mom in for a minute? Let's work together. Okay, Mom. Come in here because I have another comment.
Bring the light from over there to this side for me.
Grab some ringers.
Hi, baby.
Grab it right there, right with that part, yellow envelope.
I know you can feel me in here. Papa? I know you can hear me.
Remember what I always tell you, that you're my baby.
I love you.
My firstborn, my son. You're the only son I got, so you gotta put in for me, okay?
No, no, someone's already opened one. He's already got one out.
Mommy's right here, okay? He's into cars, football,
He loves all that.
bikes,
Yeah. All the
and his
sacrifices.
karate, of course, which is when he was coming home.
He had just gotten his yellow belt also yesterday.
Second yellow belt.
His second yellow belt.
He was on his way home to tell me.
Yeah.
You know.
So.
He's a very loving child. That I can say for Alex. Everybody loves him because he's very loving. He's very affectionate. You know, he's always touching you, hugging you.
Lots of things run through your mind. Is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? And the neurosurgeon pretty much told us it's a 50-50 chance. He told us just, like that. And, you stop and you say to yourself, how much you appreciate your child.
I love you.
Right here.
The most common cause of death and disability in young people in the age of 1 to 44 is head injury. I think we probably keep it out of our minds that an accident could happen. It's not going to happen to me. And you know what? It is going to happen to you. It's going to happen to your kids. Yeah, hi, it's Dr. Ghajar from neurosurgery. Did you hear about the pediatric transfer? There's a 9-year-old boy who was hit by a car, brought to Jamaica Hospital emergency room. He was comatose and then had a seizure.
Ready to go? Yeah.
Shortly before midnight, Alex is transferred to New York Hospital, which has a special intensive care unit for children.
No, you got the two. You count. 1, 2, 3, go.
At 1 in the morning, Alex's mother gets an update from Ghajar, who practices at New York Hospital as well.
I know that you met Dr. Ghajar over at Jamaica, and he probably gave you as much information as we have right now. Do you want to lead it?
Yeah, we measured the pressure. I'm going to tell you, we first put in the tube in his brain. Over at Jamaica, the pressure was high. And here we have it connected to a monitor now. We can get an actual number. And it's a good number. It's not too high. And hopefully it'll stay at that level. Everything else is stable as far as neurologically is concerned. But the next 3 days are really crucial. See how much his brain swells up. But the good news is that right now his pressure is not too high. And the question is, what will he be like ultimately? Right now we don't address those kind of questions. Right now it's kind of life and death. We're trying to prevent the brain from swelling further. That's why he's here in the intensive care unit.
Throughout the night, the team will watch for any change in Alexander's brain pressure. Ghajar believes that this intense bedside vigil is absolutely key, and yet dangerously missing from many hospitals.
I did a survey with the Brain Trauma Foundation of 260 trauma centers throughout the United States that took care of severe head injury. And we asked them basic questions like, how many head injury patients do you see a month? Do you monitor the pressure in the brain? Let's see if the brains.
Go on.
One fact we found in the survey is that 70% of the centers were not monitoring the pressure in the brain routinely. And we knew from the literature that patients that did not have their brain pressure monitored and were not treated aggressively had a much higher death rate and poorer outcome than patients that did have their pressure monitored. So just that, we could see there was a problem.
Back with neurosurgeon Dr. Jam Ghajar. Have you ever been in a coma, or has anyone close to you been in one?
Well, I had a head injury when I was 7 years old, but my real experience with brain injury was from my older sister, who's retarded. And I don't know, as a child, I guess you're growing up, I was always trying to figure out how to make her normal, and I was almost like forcing her every day to make her normal. And I couldn't figure it out, and I think that was one of the reasons I went into studying the brain. On the second day, Alexander started dilating one of his pupils, and that's a very bad prognostic sign. There's a nerve that goes to the pupil, and if the brain gets very swollen, it can actually squish that nerve within the skull. And when it presses on that nerve, the pupil dilates. So he was in a very serious condition at that point.
Sorry, Alex, we'll be done in a second, big guy. I'm just gonna take a picture of your head.
A second CAT scan is ordered, which confirms that brain swelling has increased overnight.
These are cuts through the brain with a CAT scan, and here are the eyes here, and this is the middle of the brain that's going through it. And this is the base of the brain, and we look at this area around here, and because if there's a lot of swelling, the brain sort of crunches in, and these black areas here are spinal fluid, and you don't see it very well. That means there's a lot of swelling. So it's like you slam your finger in the door, this finger swells up, the brain is now swelling.
Well, there was family members in here, and then he just started to get very agitated. ICP went up, his hands and his legs started going.
Despite the draining of brain fluid, the pressure inside Alex's skull continues to rise. Called ICP for intracranial pressure, it climbs into the 30s, well above a safe level.
He's draining okay, huh? The tube that's in the brain, which is draining spinal fluid, that's actually hooked up to a pressure monitor. Usually if the number is between 0 and 10, that's normal, I'm not worried about it. When it gets up to 20, start anticipating some bad things. Now, his pressure was 30, which is very high for a child.
When swelling can't be controlled, the brain chokes off the supply of oxygen-carrying blood. The strategy now is to raise blood pressure, keeping it 70 points higher than brain pressure, using medication. If the plan works, it will force blood through the brain during this critical stage.
When you're in there with him, right now, try not to talk to him. You can just like hold his hand or stroke him or whatever, but don't, try not to stimulate him, okay? And then if his pressure's low tomorrow, then you can start doing more things.
Seems to be kind of tense. Hi, Bob. Oh, what's going on?
He responds, he knows that there's people around him. Yesterday, a lot of family members came around and that made his intracranial pressure go up. It's been very high and it hasn't gone down no matter how much they drain. It's very hard on any parent. I mean, he's still with us, he's still alive, so, you know, it's not, I can't say the loss of a child, but just the thought of it. And seeing, you know, a child under those conditions, you know, where you know that, you know, the pain and suffering that he's going through.
You wonder how you keep your sanity, you know. But I just keep myself up to keep my wife together so that she won't lose it. And just hang in there, you know, a lot of prayers.
As Alex enters day 3, the pressure inside his skull is finally dropping. Numbers measuring the amount of blood flowing through the brain are good as well. But Ghajar wants an outward physical sign from Alex that the crisis is indeed under control.
Hi, how's he doing? When physicians examine a patient after a head injury who's in coma, there are very few signs that we can look for in terms of brain functioning.
Got brisk corneals, huh? Well,
what we usually do is we pinch them just below the collarbone.
Did you pinch him ever? Let's see what he does. That's good.
Alex's brain has just identified a source of pain and sent a signal to his hand to reach toward it.
So does he move spontaneously at all, or?
He has been moving his head from side to side. He moved his left more than his right.
More than his right.
This is a sign that his level of consciousness is changing.
His hands and his legs are going. So he definitely seems like he can hear, but he won't follow commands right now.
Yeah, good. Our goal is to improve the outcome of patients with brain injury. And that first week, immediately after the accident, is an incredibly fruitful area for intervention and making a difference. But you have to really pay attention. These small fluctuations, blood pressure, brain pressure, doing operations, it's very, very intense.
We have a male approximately 30 years old, found hypotensive unresponsive. Medics tried to intubate unsuccessful.
At a teaching hospital in New York, Jam Ghajar critiques a trauma drill.
They're severely battered about the head.
Okay, someone called neurosurgery.
Residents practice the first steps of the head injury protocol Ghajar is using on Alex.
Okay, let's put some monitors on, get a blood pressure cuff on, O2 set.
The team checks the ABCs, airway, breathing, and circulation. And so far, this looks no different than other ER scenes.
I got your tube. I'll take the tube. I see a little vomitus around the cords. Okay, tubes in. Let's hook them up.
But the residents are about to make a controversial move.
Okay, is the fluid running in?
They decide to give the patient plenty of fluid.
Blood pressure. How much fluid has he gotten? 800. Up his fluids, both lines.
Faced with this very same case Ghajar has discovered, many hospitals would do the complete opposite.
Open his both lines wide.
Basic care is so variable and in many cases can be detrimental. We have to straighten this out before we can move forward. Randy put in secondary brain insults.
Ghajar had discovered an alarming number of discrepancies in care when he gathered leading neurosurgeons to develop a protocol called the Guidelines.
I mean, that would be a real service if we could. We spent 2 years meeting all over the country, reviewing 3,000 scientific research articles on head injury, and then came together with a document which gives the best current treatment for managing patients with severe head injury.
Hopefully, when we're done with this document, we will have the data here as best summarized. We'll say the best things we can.
Randy Chestnut, a neurosurgeon from Oregon, is part of the Guidelines movement.
The best trauma system is done bang, 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 like a machine gun. The patient is injured, the intracranial tube goes in, the IVs go in, the blood pressure goes up, they go to the CT scanner. You don't have time to think. And the Guidelines basically give you the building blocks to do that. They make that bang, 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 bang thing happen that saves lives.
Right people still dilated.
Okay, left pressure started.
Using the Guidelines, these residents reject some of the old ways of treating head trauma, which can actually do more harm than good.
The standard of practice in head injury has been to keep patients fluid restricted. With the idea like a sponge, it keeps the brain from swelling.
Is the fluid running wide open?
Yeah, it's wide open.
But intravenous fluids are needed for adding volume, and therefore pressure to the circulatory system. And strong blood pressure forces oxygen-carrying blood to the brain.
The problem was that by restricting fluids, the blood pressure would drop.
Pressure's dropping.
Pressure's dropping.
Pressure's dropping.
All right, let's bring up his blood pressure while we're getting the volume in.
Studies since then have shown that this actually causes a worse outcome in patients.
What's his mean pressure?
So although what sounded like a good idea once and is sort of the dogma, it's wrong. And by pointing out the science of that, we hope to change practice.
Now, I want to ask our three neurosurgeons.
At a trauma conference in Oregon, Ghajar and Chestnut push the Guidelines and gauge whether they're being accepted in the field.
You've heard really a radical departure on the treatment of severe brain injury, and trust me, not all neurosurgeons even agree on these guidelines. So if you have questions, this is the time to ask the panel about it.
I work at a number of different shops in Los Angeles, and the practice is very, very variable.
Oh, you mean the neurosurgeons don't agree with these guidelines?
They don't practice them by and
Some
large.
of them haven't read them, I don't think. The guidelines are there. The guidelines are evidence-based. Those of us in community practice did receive them. Unfortunately, the neurosurgeons in the community are of differing generations, let's say, and there's a resistance that you meet that I've been doing something for 30 years, for 40 years, for 20 years, and it's always worked for me. There's a resistance. And
When I talk privately to doctors, they say, yeah, I know about the evidence, but I still do what I do. Well, that's just not good science. And I don't think the public wants to be exposed to this kind of variability.
Like many Americans, Deborah Ward never thought twice about standards of care in medicine. Then, one rainy afternoon, her daughter was in an accident.
Nicole was driving to field hockey practice on October 23rd, and this was the way that she went. So she was driving her Volkswagen Cabriolet, so she would have turned left here, and right down ahead on the right, there's a house with a very deeply sloping roof. It's a stone house. This is where the accident happened. The tree's been cut down. You can see the stump of it there, but her car crested the lawn and went up and hit the tree on the driver's side. The impact of the tree against her head was what caused, her injury. There was nothing to cushion her from that. Her head struck the tree.
Nicole was taken to the ER of the nearest hospital, in a coma and having seizures. Her brain pressure was not monitored.
Sometime later, one of the doctors said it's not probable that she will make it. If you are a religious person, you should contact your pastor or your priest and have them come. We were told clearly that Nicole's prognosis was terrible, that there was really nothing that they could do for her. And Nicole was administered her last rites, which is hard to see.
Nicole was a senior at Greenwich High School, captain of the field hockey team, working hard on college applications. In a split second, this had all changed. But Nicole's mother wanted her daughter back.
As the evening was progressing, my husband and I concluded that we needed to take her to another hospital. I guess I always thought, based upon my family history, my mom's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, that when you have a big problem, you go to a big city hospital.
A transfer to New York Hospital was arranged by a doctor in Greenwich, who by chance had been a roommate in medical school with Jam Ghajar. Here, Nicole received the same treatments that would later be used on Alex, including a tube in her brain to monitor and relieve pressure.
What I have learned subsequent to Nicole's accident is that in many hospital facilities around the country, even trauma centers, that they do not perform this simple, and it's apparently a relatively simple surgery to perform. The fact that it is not performed more routinely is appalling. And the closer to the time of injury that it's done, the better the perhaps outcome can be. I could at that point only hope and pray that we had reacted quickly enough.
2 years later, on the same intensive care unit where Nicole Ward was treated, Alexander enters day 5.
He was really awake this morning when I first got here.
What was he doing?
He was like moving his feet and his arms.
Really?
Opening his eyes.
Oh, you're opening his eyes. All right. Alexander, open your eyes. Alex, open your eyes. Oh, great.
Good
boy. Oh, there we go. Hello. Hi. Hi. Whoa, that's great. Huh? Does he follow any commands?
Not yet that I've noticed.
Can you squeeze my hand? Squeeze my hand. Open your eyes some more, huh?
Oh, this
Wake up.
This is the first time you opened
Yeah.
this? Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was real awake this morning.
He wasn't following commands, huh?
No.
Alex's brain is re-establishing cycles of sleeping and waking, signaling a new level of consciousness. Technically, he's no longer in a coma, and Ghajar is no longer concerned about the pressure inside his brain. The chance of Alex surviving has now greatly improved.
Hi. So we had some good news this morning, huh? Oh, is this baby sister?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, how are you? Hi, what's your name?
Adriana.
Adriana. That's a beautiful name. How old are you?
3.
3. Oh. How old's your brother?
9.
Wow. That's pretty good. Anyway, so, he opens his eyes. So that's great.
Right.
So now we'll start, weaning him off the respirator. Then we can take the tube out of his brain.
Hey. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
See?
Oh, he grabbed my hand. He grabbed my hand.
A lot of the people who end up in brain trauma instances are kids. So parents are one of those groups who are advocates for proper care of their children. So what I thought of was to aim the PSAs really at parents.
Convinced that there is a right way and a wrong way to handle head trauma, Ghajar considers taking his case to the public.
Well, I think we have some choices to make about how hard-hitting we want the message to be.
A consulting agency in New York gives him ideas for public service ads.
This one features a very close-up shot of a little kid, so it's so close-up that he's sort of out of focus. And it says, "Your child suffered serious head injuries in an accident. Now for the bad news." And the text that would go under here would be, if there's a choice, monitor brain pressure. If you don't do something, there could be an even more severe outcome.
The ad campaign presents a dilemma. It could save lives, but by publicizing a division in the field, it could alienate the very doctors Ghajar wants to convince.
But broken. And it says the wrong treatment could hurt more than the accident.
That's fairly strong.
Yeah, that's. I would say you've got to be a little careful there.
We're not trying to put blame anywhere. I think the doctors want to do what's best for the patient. We're just trying to get the word out. Okay, all right. How are you? Hey. You look at me?
For days after Alex opens his eyes, the pressure inside his skull remains low. Ghajar proceeds to remove the tube from his brain.
Out comes a ventriculostomy. This is the tube we had in his brain. And there it goes. It's all out. Okay, all right. The first stage is a coma, where they don't open their eyes. That's about the first week. Then the second week, they open their eyes, but they don't do anything. And then the next stage is they open their eyes and they do purposeful things. So when he opens his eyes, he's no longer in coma, but he's not doing anything, so he's just aroused. Just means a vegetative state. Now, some people stay there. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. So I want to see something purposeful from him. Squeeze my hand over here. Squeeze my hand. Squeeze my hand. About 5 to 10% of all severe head injury patients end up vegetative, which most of the public think of as prolonged coma. And I think it's because of the initial injury, the car accident or whatever. Maybe they didn't get enough oxygen at the time, or maybe they have damage to their parts of the brain that are really vital for conscious behavior.
See your thumb.
Show me your thumb.
Show the top of your thumb, baby.
They don't follow commands, they don't speak, they don't interact with their loved ones. And it's a very, very unfortunate outcome. Open your eyes up. Open them up. Can you open your eyes, Alexander?
When the doctor told me he's in a vegetative state, I wanted to die. You don't want that word being used in the same sentence with anyone that you know, with any human being.
I had a conversation with Mom yesterday. She's becoming somewhat discouraged because now the progress is slow, and I told her she has to expect that things will move very slowly now, and that she has to measure his progress over weeks and maybe months rather than day to day now.
Great.
Back with neurosurgeon Dr. Jam Ghajar. I'd like you to choose a case that you've worked on. Maybe we'll talk about a woman who was beaten over the summer in Central Park.
Yeah, that was a well-publicized case. It was a young woman who was walking in Central Park at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a piano teacher, and she was severely assaulted.
The woman's head had been repeatedly beaten against pavement. She had multiple fractures of the skull, a black eye, a bloody face.
She looked absolutely terrible because her whole head was swollen. She didn't look human.
The patient was given only a 20% chance of surviving, but no experimental drugs were administered or new technologies employed. Instead, a slender tube was placed in her brain, just as in Alex's case, to monitor pressure. That night, the tube rang out an alarm that something was terribly wrong. A CAT scan confirmed trouble. A blood clot was growing and dangerously pressing against the brain.
So I had to do something right away, because if that big blood clot sat there, expanding, producing a lot of pressure in the brain, her blood flow would have been compromised and she would have suffered a massive stroke.
When Ghajar drilled through the skull to remove part of it, the patient's brain was so swollen it started to come out.
I could see that the whole brain was completely swollen. I mean, it was very, very dramatic. The brain was so swollen, in fact, that I couldn't put back the bone plate. I actually had the bone plate stored.
Twice, the patient needed emergency surgery to remove blood clots that would have killed her. And they might well have gone undetected if the team had not been diligently monitoring pressure.
We can see there's an immense concentration of physician and nursing resources on these patients. You just can't plug them in and walk away and come back next week, because half the patients will be dead then.
After the surgeries, the entire city seemed to wait, day after day, for a sign that the Central Park patient would come out of her coma.
It wasn't until the third week that she started following commands. I asked her her name, I mentioned her name to her, and I said, "Is that your name?" And she nodded her head. And I asked her, gave her another name, I said, "Is that your name?" And she pulled her head the other way and said, "No." That means that she heard what I said, she comprehended it, and then followed the command, that was a great moment, because then we're assured of some kind of recovery, and she would not be vegetative.
On the one-year anniversary of her assault, the patient's community gathers to celebrate her continuing recovery. Cameras are asked not to film family members because the patient wishes to keep her identity a secret.
The single greatest expression of her recovery is that she's now been able to return to play the piano. I know that she'll continue to make a recovery, and we'll have a true miracle.
Let us pray to the Lord.
It's not a miracle that these patients recover and do well. That's the point about this case, that it's not a miracle on the Upper East Side. It doesn't require a magician, it doesn't require a guru. It can happen anywhere. Hi. How's he doing?
I'm just covering for now, but
Yeah?
he's febrile. So.
He's febrile. Oh, you got a chest x-ray on him?
I'm gonna order one.
Yeah. Alexander! Take this out, let's see, let's put it back.
It's now day 13, and Ghajar is still waiting for Alex to show conscious behavior.
He's yawning. This is a very primitive reflex. What I'd like to see him do is track, follow commands. That'd be terrific. But we're not there yet. There's this period of time, and it's a few days to a week. It can even last up to months, where there's no conscious behavior. And it is the most difficult time for me and for all medical personnel, where you're worried, is this patient going to be one of those 5 to 10% of patients that's going to be permanently vegetative? He was opening his eyes, but not following any commands, not making any purposeful gestures with his arms or legs. There was no conscious behavior. Now we're going to go up and look at the MRI he had yesterday. So we usually get these after a couple of weeks just to see what the extent of injuries are. You see, here's the base of the frontal fossa where the frontal lobe sits, and you can see if the head moves forward, the brain moves at a different speed and glides across the surface here. And this surface here is not smooth. This has ridges in it. And what happens is the brain hits those ridges, and it causes little bleeding, little tears.
That's this over here, these little areas of hemorrhage, the white areas are little areas of hemorrhage in the inferior aspect of the frontal lobes.
The frontal lobes are involved in tracking and also a sense of self, and they're involved in arousal mechanism as well. So that's why he's having problems. Where's his teddy bear? He likes looking at his teddy bear. Let's see if he follows this. It's your friend here. Look at this. Look at your friend. Look over here. Look at your friend. He's having a difficult time following things. You can see here's the bruise where he was hit by the car. See, maybe this is the bumper of the car. And he also got hit across his head. So it was a really significant injury. When a child doesn't do well, it affects physicians and nurses much more than I think if an adult doesn't do as well. The child is just starting. Look at, what kind of disability they can have, and it's just a horrible thing to see. It affects you for a very long period of time. Come on, Alexander, follow me.
The Hollywood version of coming out of a coma is that the person looks beautiful and is asleep, and that all of a sudden their eyes open and it's a beautiful sunny day and birds are chirping and everything's great. The reality of coming out of a coma is very different. It's very slow. Nicole's eyes were open for a long period of time before she could actually really respond to me. And that was almost harder than when they were closed.
After the accident, the first thing I remember is being transported from New York Hospital to Gaylord Rehabilitation Hospital. I remember being in a reclined position, like I was laying down. I remember 2 sets of sliding glass doors that went like that, and that's it.
Because I think I'm gonna stay in Boston this summer.
Good.
Yeah.
The predictions were that I will be a permanent vegetable. I will never do anything for myself ever again. They never thought that I'd be here at BC, a sophomore, right on schedule.
Now here's a check of some of the other stories making headlines today.
At a cable news station in Boston, Nicole interns after classes.
New England Cable News.
She hopes someday to be a correspondent. But between that bright future and her car accident lay the difficult road of recovery.
When I first started my therapy, there were definitely times, many times, when I thought, why am I even here? Why didn't I just die? Because everything is so much harder now. It's such a struggle to live. Why do I have to go through it?
So just write Lawrence live 9 and 10, and then Lawrence live 9 and 10 down here. Okay. Okay? Yep.
In many ways, Nicole feels like she's still emerging from a coma, 2.5 years later.
But because we kind of followed the
It's not like sometimes I have to deal with some of the effects. It's every day. Things like walking. I walk sort of not right. And I can feel that in myself, and sometimes after I've said it to people, then they notice it too. I always feel a little bit different than the average student. I take 4 classes per semester, not 5. But I can walk, I can think, I can write. These very basic things that are taken for granted are really a big accomplishment. I'm so lucky, really, that my mother randomly selected a doctor out of the bunch who were standing in front of her and said, this isn't right. I want my daughter to get better care. What can we do? And so I happened to be taken to New York Hospital, where Dr. Jam Ghajar did the ventriculostomy on me, and that was all happenstance. It was all luck.
On Friday, the chaplain was in there speaking to me. He was saying good morning, and Alexander all of a sudden opened his eyes and looked at him. I was like, did you see that? Did you see that? But he closed them right away again, so I came onto the other side of the bed where I would be in his view. And he opened up his eyes and he smiled at me. That was like the greatest.
I can hear you, Puppy.
20 days after his accident,
Where are we going?
Alex recognized his mother, passing a major milestone.
I can't hear you, Puppy. We're gonna go to that other hospital where you're gonna get physical therapy for this. You gotta get strong again. I told you, for karate.
I tried to feed him Saturday. I noticed that he was chewing kind of funny, because he was trying to close his mouth, but it wouldn't close in the front. So his jaw's broken in 2 places, broken on the left side in the back and the right side in the front. So it looks like when the car hit him, it just like knocked it out of place.
Okay.
Is that good?
Hey, how you doing?
Sit up a little more.
Can you lift your leg up? Lift your leg up here. The best moment is when they follow commands, and that's a great time. They may even track you, follow you with your eyes first, and then you say, show me 2 fingers. Can you show me all 5 fingers? Good. Show me 2 fingers. That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. How about 3? Hey, that's very good. That's very good. Give me a squeeze over here.
Following commands is a sign that Alex has finally emerged from a vegetative state.
Alexander, are you going to leave the hospital? Yeah? Where are we going to go? Go someplace that's more fun, huh?
Bye, Alex.
Bye, Alex.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
No longer in need of intensive medical care, Alex leaves New York Hospital for a nearby rehabilitation center.
You're welcome to join anybody on the team, which is all the rehab therapists, the school teachers, me, and the psychologist, in any of the therapies.
Now you're gonna start swinging.
55 pounds. He's always been skinny like that.
Now we get to do this once a week. Every Tuesday we'll be taking your weight.
Do you have any questions for me?
Alexander's a very well-mannered child. He's a perfect child, really. And one thing he has is a lot of respect for his dad and me. And I've noticed, like, when I speak to him, I feel like he's ignoring me, and he would never have done that before this. So I was wondering if that's like part of that. Will that go away?
Some children lose. Yeah, some children, their personality changes from the accident, but it's too early to predict anything about that.
Hello. Hello. You okay?
Now pick up that behind. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, yay! Good boy, a little more. Another quick shimmy. One more shimmy over there. Good job. Okay, we're gonna kick Ernie with it, okay?
Just karate chop to Ernie, okay?
Give him a hi-ya. Was that funny?
Rising Bunto punch key on the last punch. Ready, one!
Catch with both hands. Good.
Hold it up there for me. Hold it up there.
Maybe if you say hi-ya.
Hey,
Okay, now, can you make a picture of a person?
See it? You gotta get out of your chair first. You gotta scoot forward. All right. Here we go. Here's a hand. That's a good one. How about the one down by that couch? Is that too far?
There's a great difficulty in getting people to realize that no matter the early gains, there can be pretty serious long-term consequences.
Changing colors, right?
We don't expect parents to accept all of that immediately, and we're not in the business of destroying hope. Hope helps support all the interventions that are going to be necessary 3 months from now and 6 months from now and 2 years from now. See how I grew. Newborn. Go ahead.
2 days old, 2 weeks old, 6 months old, 1.5 years old.
Very good. Okay.
Alex, come on.
Hey, this isn't the man, is it?
Look, Alex.
Wow, you look terrific.
This is my brother, Alex.
It's your brother, huh?
Yep.
How you feeling? Huh? Feel good? You looking forward to going home? Give me a big squeeze. Squeeze, squeeze. Oh, don't break my fingers. Okay, how about this one? Hey, that's pretty good.
Want to say something?
Okay, go ahead. Whoa! That's very impressive. I can't do that.
Maybe I can do it.
Well, it's great seeing you, Alex. Bye.
Children who have sustained head injuries because of a change in their behavior and a change in their judgment have high percentages of secondary head injuries. And that's what we need to prevent. So we'll have to do a lot of educating for Alex as he grows older.
We have more than 500 people at the conference from 47 different countries.
Ghajar and colleagues now are traveling around the globe, to spread the word about the treatment protocol they so believe in.
After Dr. Ghajar, Dr. Ghajar.
How are you? Where are you from?
Romania.
Romania. I'd like to thank the organizers for allowing us to present the guidelines here. Our goal is to take these guidelines and apply them throughout the world so that no matter where you have a head injury, you will get the best available treatment.
He had a crash. He was in a motorbike sitting behind the one I was driving. So he was intubated on the scene of accident, brought him immediately to operating theater and placed an ICP monitoring in the ventricle.
Monitoring brain pressure is not high tech. These things get clogged up. They don't drain properly.
We always have problems with the drainage when they feel like
you should get ones without filters in them. Once you start monitoring brain pressure, you've got to start doing things. It's a lot easier just to put the patient on the ventilator, give them some drugs, and come back next week and see how they're doing.
It's 9 o'clock because the pressure went up and it was moving. And
they're lying there in a coma. They're not screaming out for help. They're not saying I'm in pain. I think if these patients were awake and say, listen, do something for me, we'd be doing a lot more for them.
So we're near the house?
So Alex has made a very miraculous recovery from his injuries, and that's a good indication of just how strong he really is inside. It's a real warrior. I'd gone to visit him several times in the hospital when he was in a coma. And I remember at one point they told me that he wasn't responding anymore. And I was terrified. And when I found out that he actually pulled through it, I just couldn't believe it. It was so fantastic. So Alex, welcome back, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, and today we're going to present him with his second yellow belt, which is where we left off when he last left us. So Alex, turn around, take your belt off, please.
Yeah, hi, it's Dr. Ghajar. Can I have the CT scanner, please? What motivates me is there are deaths occurring every 10 minutes as we're talking that are potentially salvageable patients that can go on to have a very good quality of life. You're going to end up, when you're in a coma, in the closest trauma center. You do not have a choice. So it comes upon society to say to you, you don't have a choice. We're going to take care of that for you so that no matter where you or your child goes, you will receive this standard of care.
Alex returned to his elementary school 3 months after his accident. He is slower to learn, and the right side of his body is weak. But he has been returned to his family.
TV medical dramas. Ever get lost in the jargon? At Nova's website, we translate a Chicago Hope script. Log on to www.pbs.org. Stat. To order this show for $19.95 plus shipping and handling, call 1-800-255-9424. And to learn more about how science can solve the mysteries of our world, ask about our many other NOVA videos. Next time on NOVA, they risked it all in a perilous flight to the finish.
It was a very important secret, and it paid off.
Now, get the real story behind the race to fly faster than sound. NOVA is a production of WGBH Boston. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Park Foundation, dedicated to education and quality television, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Coming up on NOVA, an IRA bomb has been planted. Someone must defuse it, quickly, safely.
There's a piece of fishing line dangling off one of the doors. You might be in trouble.
It's the most incredible power I'd ever seen unleashed, and all from striking a box of matches.
Politics and science make an explosive mix in Bomb Squad.